Well, we have this story from 538. California's Gavin Newsom will likely face a recall election, but he'll probably survive it. Now,
who wrote that?
I hope
538.
Sounds like propaganda.
Well, I know. I was going to say that because 538 failed miserably in the 2020 election and the 2016 election, and they were so mad about it.
What was that one?
Well, all the polls were historically off by what was it? What was the average? Like 7 points?
Bad. 7
it was
points, yeah.
worse in 2020 than it was in 2016. My
Right.
favorite thing about the polls was the New York Times had safe Democrat, lean Democrat, toss up, lean Republican, safe Republican, and the whole thing skewed Republican. So the lean Democrat all went Republican, and then the safe Democrat, actually some seats flipped Republican.
Yikes.
That's why they were able to regain a lot of the House. Mm-hmm. They were so wrong. So now it is true. Let me read a little bit of the story, just to give you guys context. They say, California Governor Gavin Newsom has been in office for just 2 years, but there have already been 5 failed attempts to force a statewide recall election on whether to remove him from office. That itself is not unusual. California has some of the most permissive recall requirements in the country. But what is unusual is that the 6th attempt, which is currently underway, appears to be gaining some serious traction. If it makes the ballot, the election would be just the 4th gubernatorial recall election in all of American history. And 2 of the previous 3 governors to face recalls ended up going down in defeat, including California's in 2003, when in the midst of a statewide fiscal crisis, 55% of voters opted to recall Democrat Gray Davis and elected Republican Arnold Schwarzenegger in his place.
Right,
that seems like a bad omen for Newsom until you consider for special circumstances of this recall and the political evolution of California. Well, I'm not interested in their overall assessment. The point is, it's everyone else has lost, and it's over 1.5 million signatures now to get rid of Newsom.
Yeah.
So he could be gone.
I mean, just what it shows is how angry people are. I mean, I don't think you can look at what's happening in California, which is we are the most locked down place. LA specifically is the most locked down, and yet we're the worst of the cases. There was a story that the air that people in LA were breathing was polluted with from the, what's it called when they burn people, the crematorium?
Crematoriums?
Yeah.
Wait, really?
That the air was so polluted because people were dying at such a frequent rate. But what's so crazy is that, you know, obviously there is a growing movement of people who are angry about the leadership in California, but there are still so many people there that think it's like he's doing a great job simply because he's Democrat. And they look at Florida and they look at DeSantis and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're fully open. That's so messed up. And it's like, but they're not worse off than us. So what is the logic? At this point, if you support lockdowns and the way that they've been imposed, I think there's something seriously wrong with you.
It's a cult.
It really is.
When they complain about Trump supporters and they're like, you know, I see these posts on Facebook all the time. They're like, Trump supporters, you're in a cult. I'm like, you know,
okay.
I know the people they're referring to. They're referring to the Q people who believe this crazy nonsense. I understand why they're saying that. My response to them is usually like, I hear you. Do you think you're in a cult? You don't? Have you considered maybe y'all are crazy?
Right.
The right and these really zealous Trump supporters don't have cultural power in the cultural institutions. And they had very limited political power with Trump as president. Trump was struggling in a lot of ways to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. He was able to pull off a lot, don't get me wrong. Right now, the Democrats control every cultural institution and every branch of government. Well, except for the Supreme Court, but we'll see what happens. They're fairly pro-establishment. We'll see how they end up ruling.
And look where we're at. Everyone's still begging for scraps from the government after almost a year in a pandemic where people can't afford food, rent to survive. And yet, for some reason, some people still just like are so much more comfortable with Democratic leadership. And I don't get it.
It's a cult. You know, so I'm not saying everybody who voted for a Democrat is a cult. That's ridiculous. Every Trump supporter wasn't some zealous conspiracy theorist. It's just that in the cultural institutions, you have substantially more cult-like Democrat people who just would absolutely watch the whole country burn down if it meant they were owning the cons. You have a similar element among right-wingers for sure, but they don't have any power. They're not. That's why I've never really cared to be like, oh, so that. You know, that Q guy, you know, he said something dumb on Twitter. I don't care. He doesn't control the entirety of the party. He doesn't control Hollywood or TV shows or digital marketing. And he's not controlling a branch of government. Yeah. Now it's all Democrats.
It's the liberal economic order. They started it, the British and the Americans started it after World War II to basically control the world with military. So there's like this military, you know, propaganda effort that's controlled by this liberal force, the economic.
But I don't
order.
think liberal makes sense because
Actually, the specific term is liberal economic order. It's a
right.
specific thing.
I know, but I mean, like,
They call themselves liberal.
Republicans and Democrats are doing the same thing. You know, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are working towards the same goal. I think the Republicans are just like a caricature of a villain, where they do literally nothing but obstruct in certain ways to make Democrats angry and never actually fight for causes that the people on the right actually want.
Right.
So when Trump came around and said, I'm going to fight for you, they were like, finally, somebody. And then Trump did some things and ultimately didn't get a lot through because he was obstructed at every turn. Even his own administration. Apparently, the reason Trump didn't get on Parler or Gab was because of Jared Kushner, who was like, don't do it. Don't go on. Don't do it. Okay, well, now he's gone. Now he can't say anything.
Right.
So we've got, in this country, Democrats in states like California, in places like New York, pushing policies and winning elections while people suffer and beg for scraps, like you were mentioning. Yeah. And the reason why I say it's a cult is because no matter what happens, they will not let it go. I had a friend sent them the Time magazine. You see the Time magazine article about the shadow campaign, Blaire?
Yeah.
I'm like, how much more explicit could they make it?
Right.
When they said a shadow campaign, a conspiracy in the background by an elite cabal of powerful individuals, started in fall of 2019, mind you, which means they were doing it to Bernie Sanders to ensure the proper outcome. And my friend was like, oh, but they were just fortifying the election. And I said, you realize the Democratic primary didn't conclude until 2020, which means they were doing it to Bernie Sanders. And then all of a sudden they were like, yeah. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Did you notice? It wasn't about Trump. Trump was a part of it. It's about the people getting an actual candidate who represented them.
Right.
Unfortunately, Bernie sold out. He wants to be a millionaire, you know?
That's why I feel so disaffected between the left versus right thing now. At this point, at some point, if you don't start seeing that it's the elites versus the people, then I don't really know what's wrong with you, especially the last year. The last year has revealed so much about just the way the system works, the ways in which it's broken, the ways in which it doesn't just not serve the people, but it actively crushes the people, but you have so many people that still vote for that same system. And what's really scary is that now that Biden's in power, we talked about this earlier, now it's back to sort of the Obama era of like just complete like not even caring about politics at all.
What's the right word? Like blind ignorance and obedience combined, like
compliance.
Devotion.
Yes.
But it's not
even devotion. It's because they don't actually like Biden.
Good point.
No one likes Biden.
But it's not even
Compliance,
compliance.
that's a good word.
It's like
Subservience.
Complacency. Complacency.
maybe.
Obsession.
No, hold on. But it's like a willful disregard of information.
Yes.
And willful ignorance to allow Biden to do whatever he wants and turn away and not pay attention anymore.
I think the word is witness, a blind witness.
Because he's a Democrat, so nothing he does is going to be bad, and everything anyone who's a Republican does is bad.
I know. You know what I loved about Obama was when he ran and anti-war and all that stuff, and I voted for him. I was all excited. And then I think it was January 23rd of 2009. I could be getting the day wrong. Like only a few days after inauguration, he ordered a drone strike on a village of women and children, killing civilians. And I was just like, I felt like my heart sink. Like he was supposed to say no. He was supposed to say no. And then I would go to my friends, and all of a sudden, all these anti-war activists were just all of a sudden like, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. We're gonna go get pizza at the bar and just have a drink. And
it's the same thing now. The war drums are starting to beat up again with Biden, and it's like, where is everyone that cares? No one. Okay, no one. I guess no one.
It's like the dominoes are falling down.
Yeah.
And we watching it happen, and we can't do anything to stop it. It's just like the whole thing's gone.
Well, even if people did rise up or did voice their disgust, you wouldn't know about it because your algorithm is curated. Your timeline is carefully selected to make sure that you see and have a perception that these elite billionaires want you to see. And Blaire, you made a very good point. It's something that I've been screaming about for years now, endlessly. I've been ridiculed and attacked for it, but it's not left versus right. It's you versus the secret club of billionaires. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And these billionaires, they're getting their way. They're getting their power. They're getting their money more than they ever did before because of these lockdowns. Yeah. And then we have individuals like Bill Gates that, by the way, just recently became the largest farmland owner in all of the United States.
Seriously.
Lecturing us about how we need to lock down more, congratulating China about doing a great job, but also, just as of today, became the biggest shareholder in the Canadian National Railroad.
What?
A major railroad company that doesn't just provide transportation services for all of Canada, but also along the Mississippi from the north to the south of the United States. And literally, he's on his way from almost controlling the entire food supply chain from farm to table. And Bill Gates is buying up more assets, buying up more companies, buying up more land than ever before.
Dude, who would have thought Bill Gates would be the reincarnation of Alexander the Great?
Right.
Conquering large swaths of territory around the world.
Straight up.
Largest shareholder of the Canadian National Railroad.
Could you imagine? Sorry, just I'm thinking about the legends of like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great riding in on horseback and conquering land, and now we have this great warlord conqueror, and it's Bill Gates saying, "Well, I recently purchased
in a sweater vest."
Right.
To add insult to injury.
Yeah.
I mean, this man was described as a ruthless businessman who changed his ways, was going to donate all of his money to charity, more than doubled his money, by the way. But he's the one that all the mainstream media guys are going for the expert advice about what to do next.
Right.
He also pushed the goalpost because a couple months ago he said that these lockdowns, COVID's going to be with us until 2021. He changed his stance. Now he's saying 2022. And of course, who benefits off of these lockdowns? Billionaires like him.
I saw.
And you know what gets me is that I feel like the left is always talking about class consciousness, and it's I'm down to have that conversation, but it's so y'all support these lockdowns and you don't see how the rich is getting richer and you're getting poorer.
I just saw an article. The top 100 billionaires, most wealthy, their wealth has increased by 40% since the lockdown commenced.
Absolutely. You know what's funny is we did mention this before, but I love this moment where Tucker Carlson was doing his handoff with John Hannity, and Tucker was talking about how these massive corporations' value is skyrocketing amid this lockdown, basically saying how it's the largest transfer of wealth from the working class to the wealthy in the history of humanity. And then when he's doing the handoff, Hannity goes, "If a business provides a service and makes money, well then good for them, they're allowed to do it."
Yeah,
and Tucker's response was the Tucker face, where he's looking like, huh? This
Labrador.
what?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Labrador, what? I love that interaction.
Yeah.
How is it that Tucker Carlson had this evolution on populism and, the elites versus the people? And it's basically him. The rest of cable TV and everybody are still very much pro-establishment.
Well, that's why they're trying to cancel him so much.
Right.
Yeah,
And
today especially.
the stuff that he talks about is very important. He talks about it. I don't always agree with him, but he does it from an honest perspective. He does it from an honest way. And he points out how it's not private enterprise. These are not businesses engaging in the free market. These are quasi-extensions of the government, working with government hand in hand, pushing and making sure the game is rigged against everyone else so they get their way. And they've been getting their way nonstop.
And it's so sad how no one thinks to take it that far in their mind when they're looking around at them and they're seeing all of their fellow citizens living like dogs on their knees. I almost swore.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.